Hello everyone and welcome back. I wanted to take a contrarian look at this very tragic case. It just seems that the media, bootlickers and Karens all over the United States, they just have a consolidated one-track mind opinion that this girl was some delicate, innocent Barbie doll, a puppy dog that couldn't possibly do anything wrong. And she's nothing like that. I mean, she's not sweet 16. She's not this innocent little child. She's a 22-year-old grown woman suffering from a mental illness. She may have been bipolar. It's hard to tell because you see a lot of her Instagram posts where she's very happy and you can see a picture-perfect relationship. These two young kids exploring the great outdoors in the American West. But it was nothing like that. The real person that you saw was when they got stopped by the cops. You can see that she's suffering from a mental illness. You can see the real situation. She wasn't this innocent, delicate Barbie doll. She had tattoos working, and you can see in this particular situation, she was the aggressor. She attacked him. He was a victim of domestic violence. And it was the exact opposite in the way the media and the way the bootlickers and Karens portray who she was. They're even more wrong about this because of the fact that he actually tried to protect her even though he was the one that was attacked. I mean, he had bruises, scratches on his face, and then the police asked him to lift his sleeve. There was another cut there. I mean, he was trying to basically protect her even though he was attacked. As a matter of fact, he even mentioned if he can go to jail. Imagine, he was willing to take the fall for her. He said he loved her. And at the same time, he said she's crazy. And he's right. She is crazy. Now, you really have to think, how did this whole thing get started? You really have to go from the start, kind of get an idea of how this all unfolded. I mean, basically, there were a couple of meatheads. Well, with Archie, talking about the show All in the Family, he would be the father and the meathead would be the son-in-law. Well, he wasn't a son-in-law yet. He moved in and they didn't get married yet, so he was just living for free, sponging off his in-laws. In this case, she was living for free, sponging off her, well, future in-laws. I heard they were engaged. It was some update they gave, I think, on their Instagram or social media. But she was living in their house. Now think about this. This is a small house. You can see it. They have to share the same bathroom, same kitchen, right? Maybe it wasn't working out too well. Maybe there was trouble in paradise. It wasn't such a rosy relationship. I mean, basically, maybe their parents were telling them, like in most situations, you got to get a job and get out of the house. You know, move out on your own. You got to take care of yourself. You're both adults now. He's 23, she's 22. They're adults. What were they doing with her life? She was saying that she was going to be a nutritionist and a blogger. I mean, these kids had no job. He was actually using her van to drive up there. I mean, they had no career. They had nothing to do with their lives. There may have been tension going on, so what do? Decide, hey, we got this van. We do the van life. We'll be out on our own. We won't be under pressure. We won't be living under anyone else's roof. Sounds like a great idea, right, on the surface. Well, no, it's a terrible idea, especially for someone suffering from mental illness. Van life is very, very stressful. You don't have the basics anymore that you take for granted in a house. Fresh water, a bathroom, refrigeration, food that's ready to eat, supermarkets around you. I mean, they're out there in the middle of nowhere. Every time they need to eat or use the bathroom, take a shower, they constantly have to find a place to go to. And don't forget, this all costs money. They're both broke. And you can see that when they got stopped by the police. And that's another thing I want to get to. When they get stopped, she's the one they want to charge with domestic violence. And they totally messed this thing up. I mean, this was a total mess up by the police. I mean, can't they get it right? I mean, what they should have done is basically be more concerned about the fact that they hit the curb. I mean, she grabbed the steering wheel. I mean, she is crazy. She could have killed somebody. That's really dangerous. Now, she said she didn't grab the steering wheel, she grabbed his arm. Well, what's the difference? If his arm is moving the steering wheel, it's the same thing. I mean, she was out of control. So they could have acted accordingly based on that, warned them or cite them or whatever it was, because that's a dangerous situation. That would have been the right thing to do. But instead, they did all the wrong things. What do they always do? Escalate. That's right. An hour and 17 minutes. This guy, he looked like he was 150 pounds soaking wet. He wasn't a threat to them. She certainly was no threat to them. Yet they have to have 3, 4 cops there with cruisers, asking them questions, telling him to sit on the curb. I mean, it's humiliating to tell somebody to do that. That was not necessary. They make her sit in the cop car. She's already under tremendous stress. And now they're trying to pin some sort of domestic violence thing on her, and then they're trying to tell him, oh, you can get a waiver anyway. Like, they have to do everything according to protocol, right? They have to do everything according to law. They're so pious. But meanwhile, they break the law, right? Civil asset forfeiture, violating traffic law, illegal searches, warrantless searches, violating people's Fourth Amendment rights, violating people's Fifth Amendment rights. They do that, and there's no accountability, right? But here, they have to do all this because it's the Utah statute, right? I mean, don't these guys have anything else better to do? Isn't there any crime in Moab, Utah? They totally messed up this situation. And then people are asking, well, did the parents lie? Well, maybe they didn't. Maybe he did say he was going there because he was trying to throw them off. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. He doesn't want to talk. And that's the other thing. You know, you have all these bootlickers and Karens. They're standing on the parents' front lawn, aggressively accusing them of things. They know nothing about this case. These people are just a bunch of total airheads, typical products of the American public school system. Look at this idiot over here with the red hat. He's trying to make like a political statement. These people are notorious bootlickers. Like, you know, he voted for the guy that said the upper echelon of law enforcement is corrupt. It's a witch hunt constantly. But when it comes to police, oh, he's a huge supporter of them. He comes out openly and supports them. Why? Because he's not exposed to them, that's why. He's popular, he's wealthy and rich. But the average Joe, the first level of government they face are the police. And they get their rights violated all the time. Civil asset forfeiture, illegal traffic stops, warrantless searches. It goes on and on and on. But it doesn't happen to him. It happens to the small guy. And that's why he supports them. It's all levels of government that do this kind of stuff. And that's why he doesn't talk. Any criminal defense attorney will tell you that. You even see people on these news shows just for the drama. They know it. They say, whoa, why did they get a lawyer? He must have told the parents something. That means they know something. Why did he get a lawyer? Well, why did he get a lawyer? Even if the person is innocent, if he says something, they can use it against them. That's the problem with it. And you look at this fool, this airhead over here. You know, she represents the latest product of the American public school system. She's young, and you know how it is. The American public school system is garbage. It gets worse over time. When you leave garbage outside, it starts to stink even more as it's left there. So she's the latest product of it. She's holding up a stupid sign, harassing this family, violating their rights. She's standing on private property. That's trespassing. If she wants to make a statement, she should maybe go to the police station and put up a sign that says, offer immunity so he'll talk and we can find her. Now you're going to say, oh, you can't do that because then they won't be able to prosecute in the future if he has immunity. Well, maybe, maybe not. Maybe just on the things that he says. Leave some opening there because there's no way anyone can talk to these people because they will use their words against you. All you have to do is look at the Innocence Project. Why don't they talk about this instead of scrutinizing the family in this guy? Look at the Innocence Project. Look how many people have spent decades in jail for crimes they didn't commit just because they spoke to the police. But they don't talk about this kind of stuff. He had some wisdom not to talk. He must have known this. And this is why he doesn't want to have anything to do with them. Now, getting back to this case, if you look at the particular situation that happened here with the police stop, him being bruised up, and she was totally clean. I mean, she didn't have a scratch on her. Well, maybe this time she didn't hit him with a cell phone or scratched him. Maybe she picked up a knife. Maybe all the scrutiny and the stress that took place because of that traffic stop, it was an hour and 17 minutes, that really didn't help her situation. These cops are not equipped to deal with a situation like this. This is something that a social worker has to deal with, or somebody that deals with domestic abuse or whatever it is. Domestic abuse meaning him being the victim. I mean, he was the one that was attacked. So they totally botched this up. And this likely just made her more angry. Maybe this time she picked up a weapon. Maybe he did something to her in self-defense. You just don't know. Now you're going to say, well, if he did something in self-defense, why doesn't he come clean? Why doesn't he come to the police and say that? Yeah, right. How many self-defense claims have worked for criminal defendants? And I say criminal defendants, right? If it really is self-defense, he shouldn't have to face any scrutiny for that. He should be let go. Do you actually think the police are going to let him walk? No way. They're going to do everything they can to bury this guy. They are going to make the case that he murdered her, and there's no self-defense. And then he has to prove otherwise. And how many times has a criminal defendant been able to walk on a self-defense claim? Not that many times, even though when there's overwhelming evidence that it is self-defense. I mean, look at George Zimmerman. They did everything possible to violate his rights and to destroy his life and put him away in prison for the rest of his life. He was lucky, but many people are not. So don't think a self-defense claim is going to do him any good. Are you kidding? Self-defense claim basically means that he admits that he killed her, but it's self-defense. And imagine him trying to put that in front of a jury. The way she looks, flooded with bootlickers and Karens. They'll do everything possible to bury this guy. That's exactly what would happen. I mean, what do they say? A jury will convict a ham sandwich? Better believe it. American jurors, they are just complete, utter, total airheads. They basically represent the same bootlickers and Karens that are standing on his parents' front lawn accusing them of everything in the book. Talk about guilty until proven innocent. It's just ridiculous. There was even some total moron that actually asked the cops, why can't you make him talk? I couldn't believe I heard that. Imagine that. This is the kind of justice they want in this country. They want the government to force people to do things. What a total moron. I mean, definitely another product of the American government-run public school system. And then imagine this. I mean, they're standing on the front lawn trespassing on private property. It took about a half hour for a cop to come out and tell them to get off the property. It's unbelievable. And what's really confusing to me about this case that I really can't understand here is that he doesn't fit the MO of someone who commits domestic violence. Like I said, in this particular case, he had all kinds of scratches and bruises on himself, and she was clean. And the Karen that called and complained about the interaction that they had actually said that he pushed her. Well, yeah, even the cop agreed he had to push her away because she was attacking him. Look at all the cuts he had on his face and on his shoulder. I mean, why couldn't the Karen tell the truth? Or maybe the Karen didn't see it. But this is what happens when you call these guys. And I think it's possible, of course no one will ever know, if these cops never showed up, if nothing happened, maybe this may have not happened. It could be this was a bigger trigger for her to really go crazy. And maybe he retaliated to protect himself. This I don't know. We're not going to know this until the autopsy results are completely finished. And of course, if he's captured, he even asked if he can go to jail. Imagine, he was trying to take a fall for her, just to protect her. How can this be somebody that shortly afterwards would want to do anything to her? See what I'm saying? He's like the opposite. Usually the MO of somebody that wants to harm someone is that they're an abuser. You can see a history of domestic violence claims and domestic violence calls to police, restraining orders, and there was nothing like that over here. That's what makes this case very, very interesting, very suspicious about it. He doesn't look like a violent person. He looks like a person that's very compassionate. He said he loves her, and he said she's crazy, and he laughed at the same time, and he's right. But look at the circumstances of the case. A person that's very protective over her, that's willing to take the fall for her, and now he's like a suspect in her murder? I just don't understand this. It's very suspicious. I mean, can people change on the dime? I don't know. Very, very interesting. But there is a lot of failure on many levels of government here. The police totally messed the situation up, as well as the fact he can talk because he could be throwing his life away. And even the situation where the cop doesn't tell people to get off the private property. Tell these bootlickers and Karens to get off private property. So there are failures on many levels of government in this case. And there's another interesting aspect of this case is that, let's say this woman, same age, but very unattractive. Do you think that this case would be getting so much attention? Of course not. Not at all. Likely it would be hidden in some footnote somewhere. It would barely even mention it. It's because of the fact of the way she looks that this case is getting this attention. And that is very, very tragic. You see, I care about what happened to her a lot more than these bootlickers and Karens. They just watch TV. See, all they do is watch TV. They watch TV, they look at the news, and the news is very, very propagandist. You hear this music that's very suspenseful. You see all the graphics and side effects. You have an attractive anchor woman talking. It's a very fancy-looking studio, and then they show a picture of her there, and they're like, oh, look at her. That's so terrible. She's so innocent. She's like a Barbie doll. Oh my goodness. I mean, how can he do such a thing to her? I mean, this is what goes through their minds. These people are morons. They have no critical thinking apparatus at all. They're just total dummies. And it makes you wonder why, because when you have the American public school system, the government-run public school system, which is deplorable. I mean, it's horrible, just horrendous. These are the products of it. I mean, a person is a product of their education, and this is what you have. No critical thinking apparatus. They obviously didn't watch the video, see what happened over there, and then they can see who she was and what happened and what she did. They didn't watch that. They don't understand the Fifth Amendment. They don't understand how bad the system is. How even if someone is innocent can destroy their lives just by talking to them. They don't understand these things because they're not educated. Instead of reading a book, all they do is look at their phone a whole day and watch TV. And what do you expect someone to think and understand if that's the only education that they get? These people are definitely candidates for the Darwin Awards. They've just left the human genome. They're just too stupid to be stupid. So this is a very tragic case. So I'd like to know what you think about this case. Please leave your comments. Please subscribe. Please like this video. And thank you for tuning in.